Wow, this is different for me. I'm usually over there. Just to clarify, I wasn't a ranger. I was in special forces. There's a difference.
That was.
Still jumped out of the plane. I was crazy enough to do that. I think I was just trying to get closer to God to do that. So I'm going to speak to you a little bit this morning about trust. The dictionary defines the word trust as a belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. There was this cowboy walking through the desert, and he had lost his horse. So he's walking along and he sees this cowboy in the distance on his horse, and he waves him down. He says, "Hey, dude, can I get a ride? I've lost my horse." He said, "Sure, jump on the back. You can ride with me." So they're riding through the desert, and after a little bit, the cowboy on the back hooks the cowboy on the shoulder, and he says, "Hey, man, there's an Indian back here." And he says, "How big is he?" He says, "He's about that little." He said, "Well, let me know if he gets any closer." He said, Okay, I will." So they're riding along. Sure enough, a little while later, the cowboy pokes him on the shoulder again and says, "Hey, that Indian's getting closer." And he said, "Well, how big is he now?" And he says, "He's about 3 inches." He said, all right, we're still good." He said, "Just let me know if he gets any closer." So, riding along. Sure enough, pokes him on the shoulder again. He says, "Hey, that Indian's real close now." He said, "Well, how close is he now?" And he says, "Well, he's about 6 feet tall now." He said, "Well, take out your gun and shoot him." He said, "Well, no, I couldn't do that." He said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Take out your gun and shoot him. It'll be all right." He says, "Well, no, I can't do that." He said, "Well, how come?" He said, "I've known him since he was that little." So, my scripture for the day is from 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 9 and 10. Bear with me while I try to read this. "But he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weaknesses. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest upon me.'" So, on August the 5th, little did I know how much trust was going to play an important factor in that events that were getting ready to happen. I was home, and I was preparing supper for Marcia and I, which is not something that I do very often. So we were having hot dogs. And I started feeling real sick to my stomach. And ended up, I got sick and threw up a tremendous amount of blood. And we were very surprised, and the ambulance came and took me to Franklin Memorial Hospital. Well, I was there for a couple of hours, and they decided that it was best that I be transported to Roanoke Memorial. So, transported to Roanoke Memorial about 12 o'clock that night, and I settled in for the night. And next morning, I had some visitors, Pastor Matt and Lisa and the girls. And after they were gone, the nurses came in to give me some medication. They said, "Well, we have some medication here for your cirrhosis." I'm like, "Cirrhosis? No, I don't have cirrhosis." Well, my wife and I also, Marcia had expected that my PXE, the really rare genetic disorder that I had, was going to be a culprit in what was playing out. But we also thought maybe it might just be an ulcer. So, the doctor came in, and Marcia explained to him about PXE, and he says, "Well, I'm going to go check this," because they'd never dealt with this before. Well, while the doctor was gone, I decided that I needed to go to the restroom for the morning, and it wasn't a good outcome either. Same thing, but not as good as when I threw up. So, and I apologize if this is really grody. I'm just trying to get to the meat of the story, if you will. So my stomach started hurting me again, like it was right before I got sick the day before, and same result. I threw up a bunch of blood again. Well, now the doctors were really concerned because they were going to take me to do tests, and since my stomach was hurting so bad, I was rushed to surgery. So while I'm laying on the gurney there, just saying, please help me, I could hear Marcia talking to the nurses, and I could hear the tremor in her voice. And it just came over me. I just reached over to her and I grabbed her hand and I said, babe, it's going to be okay. The Lord's got this. So my trust was there. And in Psalms 22:19, it says, but you, Lord, do not be far from me. You are my strength. Come quickly to me. So as I'm laying there on the gurney and they're getting me ready to go into surgery, the doctor grabs my head and he says, Rick, I need you to calm down. And I immediately went to prayer. And after that, which I was out, I don't remember anything after that because I went to prayer. So here's where my trust was still in play, if you will. So I had two surgeries. So the first surgery, it was probably about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it lasted for 2 to 3 hours. And they were having a really hard time finding out where the blood was coming from, and there was so much blood. And so they figured out where it was, and what had happened was my artery, the main artery in my stomach, had ruptured, but on both sides. Well, they only found one in the first surgery. So when I came out of the first surgery, after a few minutes, Marcia found out where they had taken me, and she got to ICU, and there were 15 doctors in the room with me, and there were 6 doctors outside the room. And they were all conferring, trying to figure out what they were going to do next. Well, my family's on the way, and my sister and daughter and niece were in Tennessee, so they were on the road headed back. So Marcia was going through this pretty much by herself, except for my friend Linwood. And I'm not sure if she had contacted you yet or not, Matt. So they were trying to figure out where the second bleed was coming from. Marcia was in there, and she said, from the waist down, I was just covered in blood. And she just kind of got a little bit nauseous about it. And so the doctors finally decided that they knew where the next course of action was going to be, so they rushed me in for the second surgery. And I was probably only in there about 15 minutes. And it was very, very touch and go. So I had my second surgery. Meanwhile, in all this, God is working it all out. There's prayer for me from the East Coast to the West Coast, and all points in between. And to me, that's the wonderful thing about social media. You have all these friends, and if they're all connected to God, what a prayer partner you have in all these people. And not to mention the fact that I know that you all were praying as well. One thing that struck me about this was one of my best friends, well actually 2 of my best friends were talking. And one of them had called him on the phone and he said, Joel, your grandson James, he called Joel and he said, he said, how's it going with Rick? Because he'd seen what was going on Facebook. And Josh said, it's not looking good. He said, but I'll keep you posted. I'm thinking about going up to the hospital. So Joel was at his in-laws with his wife, Jessica, and they were having dinner. Joel said he just cried all the way through supper. He couldn't eat. So him and Jessica went to the back of the house and they just prayed. Prayer is such a wonderful thing between us and God. And they were trusting that God would hear their prayers as well as everyone else's. So they showed up a little while. They were pizza for everybody at the emergency room, because he just decided, I have to be there. And so then I came out of my second surgery. By then my sister and most of my family and a lot of my friends were there. And let me tell you something about friends. I would consider my friends family as well. So to me, we're all family because we're all children of God. And if we all love each other, then why shouldn't we be called family? In Philippians chapter 4, verse 6, it says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. So everyone's praying. I get out of the second surgery probably about, 9 or 10 o'clock in the evening. And I think Marcia had contacted Pastor Matt again, and you were on your way. And you were there about 1:30 in the morning, about 4:30. But they had told Marcia, they said, well, we're not sure how your husband's going to be when he wakes up, because he's taken 21 units of blood and plasma, and that's enough for 4 to 5 people. I lost that much blood. So, the next morning, people are flowing in and out through the night, standing with me, talking to me. Of course, I'm still out. I'm still in the medical coma, so to speak, coming out of all the anesthesia. And they weren't sure if I was going to wake up, what my mental state was going to be. And I wake up the next morning somewhere around 10 or 11 o'clock. My eyes open. Marcia was here and Kristen was here. And one of them said, I think it was Kristen, said, Daddy's eyes open. And they started telling me, I love you. Well, my hands are strapped because I have a breathing tube in my mouth. And, when I woke up, I realized that, and I was like, because immediately I wanted to grab this thing, but. So they're saying, I love you, and I'm just, 1, 2, 3, I love you. And I wanted to make sure they were understanding what I was saying, so I turned Marcia's hand over and I just wrote, I love you, all in letters. But she couldn't figure out what I was saying. So her and Kristen switched sides, and I turned Kristen's hand over and I wrote J-A-X, which is my grandson's nickname. And Kristen said, Dad just wrote Jackson's name in my hand. And Marcia said, your dad's okay. He knows what's going on, and his mental state is right where it needs to be. So, after a few hours, I took the breathing tube out, and the doctors came in, and Dr. Hughes, the one who did the surgery, was just shaking his head. And I said, you're the doctor, and I said, I guess my question to you is, why are you shaking your head? He said, because most people that go through what you went through don't make it. And I said, I just want to tell you something. I said, the Lord gave you all this wisdom and all this knowledge to do the things that you do. But He used you as instruments for His healing. And I decided right then and there that no matter what, I was going to tell as many people about this story as I could. Because I think it's relevant to today. A lot of us we need to learn how to trust God in everything that we do. We worry about our jobs, about our finances, where the money's going to come from to send our kids to college, or our health, or our families. If we just give it all to God and trust Him, He'll take care of us when we think that things are at their darkest. So, when the next day came, next morning they said, okay, we're getting you out of here, Mr. Stafford. You're going down to step down. And I'm like, really? Okay, cool. And everybody else was worried about it, and I was like, look, this is God's will. He's healing me, and I'm good with it. So, within 3 days, I was out of the hospital. And within a month, I was probably 75% back to where I wanted to be, enough to, within 2 months, be back singing. And I'm just praising God. And I just took the leap of faith, and I trusted Him. I just urge you all to do the same. Just don't worry. Just trust Him. Because in Him, as the Scripture said, in our weakness, His power is made perfect. And there's so many things that He's wanting to show us that He can do if we just trust Him.